Tune into this week's On .NET, where we're talking about all things .NET 7 Preview 1. That's right, .NET 7 is here, even though .NET 6 just came out, and I have my good friend Dan Roth on to break it all down and deep dive into ASP.NET Core in .NET 7 Preview 1. So tune in. Hey everyone, I'm James Montemagna. We're back with another On .NET episode. This time we are talking about .NET 7 Preview 1. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, wow, .NET 6 just came out. I've just upgraded my apps. They're super awesome. They're super performant. And now .NET 7 is here. Well, it's a preview, the first preview. And .NET is moving so fast all the time. And there's so many amazing things coming. And to help break down what you need to know about .NET 7 Preview 1, and specifically what's coming in ASP.NET Core, is my best friend in the entire world, Dan Roth. How's it going, Dan?
Hello, James. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, some people may not know, but it's your day off today, and you came in for the people, and for me specifically, because you're a sweetheart, to talk about .NET 7 Preview 1 and ASP.NET Core. And you know, you've been everywhere, Dan. You've been on all the .NET comps, you've been on all the stand-ups, you've been on the Blazors, you've been on all the things. And you write these amazing blog posts about all the updates. And Jeremy did an amazing blog post. And there's so many good things going on. But before we get into like what's even in .NET 7, ASP.NET Core, maybe can you demystify how .NET is evolving, right? We just launched .NET 6, which is a LTS, a long-term support. .NET 7 is obviously coming. We release a new build a new version every November, right? This happens every year.
Every year, like clockwork.
Forever.
Till so .NET 2000. And that's right. Yeah, we do a release every November. We're on a yearly release schedule now. And the even numbered releases are the long-term support releases. So we just did .NET 6. That was the last LTS. They have a 3-year support cycle. Okay. So that will be supported until, do some math in my head, 2024, right, is when that one will go out.
Yep.
The odd number releases are what we call current releases. And those are releases that are intended for folks that want to stay up to date with every .NET release. Like they're gonna upgrade as soon as the next .NET release comes out. Those have an 18-month support cycle. So .NET 5 was the last current release. I think that the end of that support cycle is coming up here, like in May-ish timeframe is when that one ends support. So if you're on .NET 5, you should be looking to get onto .NET 6. It should be a very simple, trivial update. Just update your TFMs. If you have any packages, update to the .NET 6 versions of the packages, and you should be good to go. .NET 7 will be similar in that way. Once we ship it, it'll have that 18-month support cycle until the next LTS release, which will be .NET 8.
Gotcha. Now, one thing that a lot of people ask me is they're like, well, I understand that now there's the kind of support. If I call Microsoft on the phone, I get out my rotary phone, I say 1-800-Microsoft. I don't think that's a real phone number, but if it was, someone will pick up and help you with your .NET 5 or 6 or now 7 based on that support policy. But is there any difference? I get this question all the time. Oh, I'm worried that to move to a current release like .NET 7 because that's not long-term support, so it might not be as of high quality. Is there a quality bar difference between releases like this?
There's no quality bar difference at all. Like we hold all the .NET releases to the same quality standard. The only reason why we have these different support cycles is for people that want a version that they can stay on for a longer period of time, have it be a little bit more slower moving, not have as much churn underneath them, and have that longer time frame for being on a given release. That's what the LTS releases are for. Current releases are held to the same quality. They're just for folks that want to keep moving ahead as we ship new features and continue to move with the platform. The support that you get, like when you call up, is if there happens to be a real bug in the stack, then we have the ability then to ship patches, and those patches come out about every month. So there's something to actually fix. So that's that. The support cycle is just telling you over what period of time will patches be potentially made available. Once the support cycle is done, then we stop patching that given release. It's not like it's going to stop working. You can continue to use it. You're just not going to get patches. Like if there happens to be a security vulnerability that gets found, you're not going to get security fixes of those types of things. So we do recommend staying on a supported release, but you can feel good being on any of the .NET versions. It's just a matter of how fast do you want to be upgrading.
Got it. Makes complete sense. All right. So we know that .NET 6 was this major release. We had .NET Conf. There were some major themes around the unification of all of .NET, right? And you not only got, amazing new features of Blazor, but we got the first previews of .NET MAUI, iOS and Android being in .NET 6 as a unification of those TFM's target framework monikers. They're little codes that say what am I developing for, basically. But also, all of WinForms, all of WPF, all of WinUI 3,
Reload was in
Hot
.NET 6,
Reload.
all that stuff.
I
Yeah.
think, what would you say the main themes of .NET 6 were?
Oh, there were a ton. I mean, we set up a themes of .NET website that you can go check to look through. I mean, Maui was one of those themes. We had a WebAssembly capabilities theme. That's where a bunch of the stuff around like the .NET WebAssembly build tools came into being, where we can now ahead of time compile .NET code to WebAssembly, do runtime relinking, and even link in native dependencies into your WebAssembly applications. I have to go back and actually check because I've already moved on in my life. Let me see.
Well, no, let's move on. You can go to themes of .NET and you can see them all. But let's move on because, Dan, now that we're already on .NET 7 Preview 1, what would you say the themes of .NET 7 are going forward?
Yeah, .NET 7 has a ton of broad investment across the stack. So we're going on GitHub, looking what users are asking for, addressing key pain points. There's 3 sort of central areas of investment that we're doing for .NET 7, but I want to clarify that they don't encompass everything that we're doing. There's a lot of stuff outside of these 3 themes. Yeah. But if you go to actually, it's easiest just to go to the blog post, and Jeremy kind of lays them out at the top of the blog post, so we can show that. There it is. Here's the .NET 7 Preview 1 announcement post. And this post walks through what are the high-level things that we're focusing on for .NET 7 at sort of a broad platform scope. And the 3 things that he highlights is, well, first of all, .NET MAUI. .NET MAUI is, of course, part of .NET 7. Right now, we're working on .NET MAUI for .NET 6, and that's scheduled to ship, in the first half of this year. So middle of this year-ish was when we expect that to come out. That will be a .NET 6-based MAUI release. So don't expect to see a lot of MAUI stuff happening for .NET 7 for a little bit. That will happen after .NET MAUI, becomes generally available for its first version. And after that, okay, their attention will then shift to doing a .NET 7 version of .NET MAUI by the end of this year. So in the .NET 7 timeframe, you can expect more performance, more tooling improvements coming to MAUI. I think the first release of MAUI in the middle of this year will have the SDK really in good shape. The APIs will be there, the controls will be there, the support for all 4 platforms, Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. Some of the tooling may still be a little bit more rudimentary, like publishing flows may require you to drop down to the command line instead of getting an integrated VS experience. All that stuff, I think, will line up with the .NET 7 timeframe, or maybe sooner, depending on when the VS features come online. Yeah. So a lot of great .NET MAUI stuff is going to come in .NET 7. That's the modern client theme, if you will, okay, for .NET 7. There's also the modern cloud theme. This is covering cloud native scenarios where you want to build applications that are going to take advantage of cloud architecture, microservices, Kubernetes, containers, these types of technologies. There'll be a broad set of investments in .NET 7 to simplify setting up authentication in those environments, improving performance like startup performance and runtime performance, better integration with containers. And we're also doing some work now with our friends on the Orleans team. If you're not familiar with .NET Orleans, this is a distributed app model. It's based on virtual actors for building out distributed applications with stateful grains. It's been around for quite a while, and it's used by some of the biggest services on the planet. We're looking now at how can we do some alignment between .NET Orleans and the rest of .NET 7, like ASP.NET Core. So that's an area that we're also investing in for the cloud native space. And then the last one is that was modern cloud, and then modernize is we want to make sure that if you're not yet on the modern .NET stack, like maybe you're still on .NET Framework, you have MVC applications or WPF or Windows Forms applications that are using .NET Framework. We want to make it easier for you to take advantage of the new features and improvements that we've done in .NET 5, .NET 6, and soon .NET 7. So we're doing a bunch of investments in the .NET Upgrade Assistant, which is a tool that you can just point at your app and it will rewrite your project file and help shuffle your code so that it can run in a modern .NET environment. We'll do a bunch of things to make that much more turnkey, if you will, particularly for desktop apps, but also for ASP.NET Core apps as well. If you have like a ASP.NET MVC app, we're going to try and help you do a better job of moving you to modern .NET.
Very cool.
We may also provide some framework features in this space as well. Like in ASP.NET Core, we want to allow you to take your ASP.NET app and sort of whittle away at it, because often, you have to have a big ASP.NET app. You can't just rewrite it all at once, and you can't just stop to progress on your business needs. So we're going to try and make it so that you can slowly rewrite it in place while you're still moving it forward, still doing development on it, like using proxying style patterns where some of the app is handled by ASP.NET Core, some of it's handled by ASP.NET, giving you abstractions that you can use that allow you to share more code between the ASP.NET side of the app and the ASP.NET Core side of the app. So there'll be some, I think, some framework investments for app modernization as well.
Very cool. That sounds really great. So I like these 3 patterns here. And obviously ASP.NET Core itself kind of, like you said, kind of reaches into some of these. Now, the first one was, modern client with .NET MAUI, but of course there's a lot of Blazor work there as well that's going on that people are excited for. But before we get to that, I wanted to break down everything new in ASP.NET Core, because you did this amazing blog post, which you also have open. We'll kind of walk through some of the high level things and have a discussion around them. So what developers need to know, but what are the major themes of ASP.NET Core going into .NET 7? You already mentioned some that plugged in. You mentioned Orleans. You talked about blending some code with framework, and of course, some substantial things with Blazor. But what are the other high level themes of ASP.NET Core that, our millions of web developers out there need to know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So like I said, these 3 big themes, they don't encompass everything that we're doing in .NET 7. So if you go to the top of Jeremy's blog post, he actually links to all the individual roadmaps for the different parts of .NET. .NET's amazing, right? Because it can do anything. You have desktop, ways to build desktop apps, mobile apps, web applications. So there's a separate roadmap for each of those different areas, if that's the area that you're particularly interested in. The ASP.NET Core roadmap is available here, and we have a blog post that walks you through, in summary, what we're doing for web developers and backend cloud developers in the .NET 7 timeframe as well. So that's what this is, and I'll walk you through a few of these things. First is performance. Performance is always important for any .NET release that we do. .NET 6 was a tremendous release for improving backend service-based performance. There was a really great blog post actually that Brennan, an engineer on our team, on the ASP.NET Core team, put out about all the performance improvements that were done in ASP.NET Core and .NET 6. Definitely check that out. We have great examples of even services at Microsoft, like our own Azure Active Directory team that got just huge perf benefits by moving from .NET 5 to .NET 6. There are blog posts about that as well. So performance in .NET 7 is going to get even better. We always keep plugging away at that. So
I would hope, Dan, right, is like every single release of .NET faster, smaller, more performance, right? And I like that it starts off that
less
way.
Working set. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're going to be often paying for those server resources, so every bit of efficiency that you can get, that's going to be good for your cost of operations. It's also generally good for the environment. If you're using less electrons in order to power your services as well. So it's just goodness all around. So better performance will continue to be a theme.
All right.
HTTP.
What is that? I'm on HTTP like 1. I don't even know what I'm on. If I go, I'm on
StreamYard.
You're
probably you already.
What am I even on? How does the internet work, Dan? I don't know what's going on.
It's still fundamentally similar stuff underneath the covers. But HTTP3 is the latest version of HTTP. It has a bunch of new features. It has a completely new transport. I think HTTP3 is the one where they introduced the quick transport, which is a UDP-based protocol.
Okay.
HTTP2 already introduced a bunch of like multiplexing type of capabilities into the HTTP spec so that you can reuse connections much more efficiently when you're sending those requests. But you do run into these problems where if anything gets sort of blocked on a given connection, then everything kind of gets blocked. I think that's called head of line blocking problem in the HTTP2 spec, which HTTP2 has already been rolled out. You're probably like we have had support for HTTP2 and ASP.NET Core for a while now. So if you're using ASP.NET Core, you're probably using HTTP2 today.
Okay.
So it's actually fairly well distributed.
And those are like
is newer.
Those are specs by HTTP2 and HTTP3. I'm not a web developer, people, so mobile desktop here. HTTP2, like that's like an HTTP3. Those are like standards at like browsers and standards. Okay, gotcha. Got it.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the latest versions of those standards.
Got it.
HTTP3 we started already in .NET 6, so there is preview support in .NET 6 for HTTP3.
Okay.
We are going to ship and stabilize it for .NET 7. So there's like a preview flag that you have to set in .NET in order to turn on HTTP3 with .NET 6. With .NET 7, it'll become part of the platform. So we'll be doing performance work on HTTP3. We'll be doing stability, reliability, and fuzz testing, security work on the protocol to make sure it's ready to go for production workloads.
Nice. Now, this is my favorite, kind of like one of my new favorite features of ASP.NET Core, because if I'm doing web development, I'm doing API development mostly. I'm not a CSS, HTML, Razor type of developer. My mind hurts. But APIs, they power everything, right? So I'm a big fan of like Azure functions that like kind of minimize the work to create APIs. But minimal APIs, a feature that sits side-by-side controllers, are my new favorite thing because they're so lightweight. And I'm starting to see this vast ecosystem of extensions from Damien. Jeff Fritz just rated this thing called Instant API that takes a database and just like, here's your API. And I was like, this is amazing. So what's going on with minimal APIs? My new favorite feature of ASP.NET Core. They're all my favorite.
I'm a big fan of minimal APIs too. Like I feel like it's such a lightweight way to get started with the framework and to get an endpoint up and running with just lot less ceremony, shall we say, fewer moving parts, but just as powerful, just as flexible as if you were building a full API controller. You can still build API controllers. Like we're not removing that feature. That will continue to be supported, and it's a valid pattern. But minimal APIs are something that we plan to continue to invest in for .NET 7. One of the things that we knew we wanted to do, but we just didn't get done in .NET 6 was to have a way to group minimal APIs together, like have them have a common route prefix, so that they're kind of representing one part of your API space, and then you can take those APIs and put them in separate files, so it's a little bit more manageable from a project and code management perspective. So API grouping is something that we'll do in .NET 7. If you're familiar with the JavaScript ecosystem, like Express.js, they have very similar patterns, and you can kind of squint at minimal APIs and see a lot of similarities there. We may be taking some inspiration from our JavaScript friends. They do good work too, and hopefully we'll bring a lot of those benefits to .NET as well. What else? There's also some like infrastructure pieces for minimal APIs that we have for controllers that we don't have for the minimal API space. So like having an ability to do cross-cutting concerns. In controllers, you can use filters, like you can have action filters, you can have authorization filters, and all those types of things. In minimal APIs, we're going to add a concept of a endpoint filter so that you can put pieces of code that operate across your endpoints in a cross-cutting way.
Cool. So kind of some feature parity there. Kind of if you're doing controllers, some people are like, hey, I can't do everything. In controllers, I have this use case for minimal. They want to move over, or they're creating a new API. Awesome. So that's really cool. Nice.
gRPC is also great. Like, I mean, there's a lot of ways to make APIs now, which can cause some confusion, but hopefully it's helping to improve your development experience. gRPC is a fantastic way to do interoperable APIs that are high performance. They're really great on the back end, but they also can be used on the front end.
Kind of back end to back end, maybe between microservices, things like that, or like one of the major use cases. Like you said, you can do front end, but the major use case seems to be primarily back end, from my understanding, compared to something.
That's currently, I think, where their sweet spot is. Although one of the things we're going to do in .NET 7 is we had done an experimental feature where you can take a gRPC service, which is normally like a binary based protocol. You can put a like normal HTTP API head on it that does like JSON transcoding of the data instead.
Okay.
And that makes it much more approachable from like, JavaScript based clients, various client frameworks to interact with that API. If you don't have a great gRPC client on the platform that you're using, or you're just operating in the browser, in which case some of the gRPC stuff is a little bit harder to use. So you can create basically a RESTful, if you will, HTTP API on top of your gRPC API without having to replicate any of the functionality. So that's something we're going to look at actually turning into a part of the product, a stable feature in .NET 7.
Cool, nice. And then you wrap that in a GraphQL, you put that in a container, you put it in a Kubernetes, and then you put it in an app, and then you deploy it into a registry. Anyways, SignalR, my also favorite feature that I use, and we use in the podcast application. What's happening with SignalR? People
strongly
SignalR.
Strongly typed clients. Yes, this is great. So we have the new source generators, right, where you can use them to, as part of the compiler, generate code. And so for SignalR, this is actually a contribution from the community. You'll be able to define an interface and generate the client code from that. This will work in both directions, where what is it, like when the server is calling into the client, have that be a strongly typed interface that you're actually invoking, or if you're calling the hub from the client, the same interface that you use to define your SignalR hub, you could use on the client and just generate the backing implementation for that interface. So that's something that we expect to come into .NET 7 as well. And I forget the name of the person who added this, but where is it?
You can find it, I can say it. But if you don't know SignalR, right, it's real-time communication for your app. So in real time, you're updating things. We use it in the podcast, the .NET podcast application. I'll put a link down there in the show notes. But that enables to do this cool feature where everyone can listen to a podcast together, and you can send emojis, and it's all happening in real time, and pause and play. I think, we all worked on that together. It was like so cool. So
it was great. And that app is still there, and we're maintaining it.
Yeah.
I assume we'll be updating it for .NET 7 as soon as it's mostly a Maui-based app, so it'll probably stay on .NET 6, I'm guessing, until we get into the .NET 7 part of the year, and then we'll flip over to .NET 7.
Totally. Who did it?
I don't, man. This is their GitHub alias. I don't know how to pronounce their name, but that's the person who contributed. Thank you so much for your.
Put a link. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Awesome. Thanks. Great.
All
right. What else do we got? Yeah. So Razor and Blazor and MVC. So the Razor is the syntax that we use for defining like dynamic web UI generation logic in ASP.NET Core. If you're defining like an MVC view or a Razor page or a Blazor component, we use Razor to define how you're going to be generating your HTML. And there's a compiler that we ship, the Razor compiler, that takes that syntax and just turns it into C#. Like at the end of the day, your Razor file is just a C# class that has a bunch of logic in it for generating HTML stuff. In .NET 7, there's a bunch of work that we want to do on the Razor compiler. We want to improve reliability, we want to improve performance, and there's a bunch of infrastructure work that we really need to do in the compiler that we've kind of been dragging our feet on, but it's time to do in large part because it'll help improve the Razor editor and tooling in Visual Studio, which makes heavy use of that compiler. Cool. So expect some good improvements to the Razor compiler as an infrastructure piece in .NET 7. And I think one of the main ways you'll see that manifest is just better and better Razor tooling. We shipped a new Razor editor with Visual Studio 2022. It has a bunch of new features, a bunch of new capabilities, some rough edges as well around the seams because it is a new code base. It's based on the new language service, LSP based protocols. So it's taking advantage of all that infrastructure. Make sure if you haven't updated to the latest Visual Studio 2022 update that just came out, 17.1. Make sure you do that. There's a bunch of good Razor editor improvements in that release, and we have more coming in future VS updates as well. So
and if you haven't installed Visual Studio 2022, you got to go get it. I mean, the IDE just writes the code for you. I mean, it's so the full line completion, the IntelliCode combined. I was making a Wordle clone this morning, and I was doing, like letter 1, letter 2, and it's just like tap, 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 tap. Like, this is amazing. So anyways, yes, I'm excited because, one of my favorite features of using Blazor is the Razor syntax and the data binding portions of it, because coming from the XAML and VVM world, it wasn't very too far off. And a lot of those features in the Razor editor and in there were very helpful when finding and adding that binding. So very excited to see more stuff come there. Speaking of Razor, you all said Blazor.
Yes.
for
We are
full stack
doing
web apps.
a whole bunch of Blazor work as well. Now, right now, the Blazor team is primarily focused on Maui, on shipping what we call Blazor hybrid support. This is the ability to take your Blazor components and stick them into a native client application. They run directly in the app, so they're running right on the machine. They can do anything that the underlying platform can do, and then render to an embedded web view control. And that's a hybrid pattern of web UI and native client functionality. You get the best of the web and the best of native all in one application. We're shipping Blazor hybrid support for .NET MAUI, of course. And then we also are going to provide Blazor WebView controls for WPF and also for WinForms, for Windows Forms, if you have like existing desktop apps that you want to try to start modernizing. Like you want to add UI to those apps that will carry forward to .NET MAUI or carry forward to the web if you're trying to move from a desktop pattern to a web application pattern.
Oh, cool.
So that's what we're doing right now. And that will be pretty focused on that for the next few months while we wrap up the first .NET MAUI release. We also do plan to do a whole bunch of Blazor improvements for web development and just for the framework across the board.
Okay.
We have more WebAssembly capabilities that we expect to deliver in .NET 7. One of them is called mixed mode ahead of time compilation. We shipped ahead of time compilation in .NET 6, where you can take your entire app and instead of it just being interpreted from .NET instruction language, as .NET assemblies, you can compile the whole thing to WebAssembly and have it run as WebAssembly in the browser, and that gives you much better runtime performance of the app. It does make it bigger, so like sort of this trade-off of like download size for runtime performance, but you get much faster execution for CPU-intensive workloads.
Got it.
Because it makes it bigger, we want to give you some knobs where you can, instead of ahead of time compiling everything, you can choose what parts you want that optimization for. Like maybe you just have one assembly that really needs to be optimized for runtime performance. So you just pick that one and then leave the rest as interpreted.
Oh, cool.
That will give you this balance between, well, decent download size while still getting good runtime performance for where it counts.
Oh, cool.
So that's what mixed mode AOT.
It's like a lever. It's like you're going to 11 on AOT or just like 6. Yeah,
just a little bit like, but think of it as like assembly by assembly. You can decide like I want to AOT that one, but none of the rest.
That makes sense. That makes logistical sense. I like it.
Multi-threading has been a huge ask by a lot of customers for Blazor. The ability to actually use threading from .NET in a browser.
Wow.
We're kind of blocked on this for a while due to a lack of browser support for the features we needed to do multi-threading in a browser environment. Apple was the last the last holdout on enabling shared array buffers, but they've done it. So we are going to try and get this done in .NET 7. It is a lot of work because it means thinking about threading concerns across the whole runtime infrastructure. So we'll see how it goes, but we're going to try and get it done. And then web crypto is also something that we've had as a gap. There are a bunch of .NET crypto APIs that don't currently work today in browser environments. Browsers do have crypto capabilities, like there's a subtle crypto APIs in browsers, and we're going to wire those up so that you can at least use those particular crypto algorithms. Please remember that browsers cannot keep a secret, so don't stick any crypto keys into a browser and think you can encrypt things and that someone can't dig your secret out. They can, so that's not what it's for. But we'll at least make the browser's crypto capabilities available to you through normal .NET APIs.
And that's cryptography, not cryptocurrency.
Yes, cryptography.
Cryptography. Got it. Okay.
Hot reload support will get improved. This is not just for Blazor, really. This is really across the board for .NET 6. But the runtime used by Blazor, which I think is also used by some of the mobile workloads, it's based on the mono runtime. And the mono runtime didn't have quite the same level of maturity for applying hot reloadable changes that the core SignalR based workloads did. So we've done a bunch of work to bring that runtime up to parity with the rest of the .NET stack. So you have one consistent hot reload experience. Hot reload when debugging Blazor WebAssembly apps is also being enabled. That's a limitation today. I think it trips people up. And honestly, Visual Studio doesn't do a great job of letting you know that it's not actually supported today.
It's like consistency is one of the main things, is like every workload should kind of work and be the same.
Yeah, it's consistency, and we are going to move the ball forward. Like new edits that even the core SignalR based runtime can't support today, they will be supported as well. So there'll be more things that you can just hot reload across the board for all app workloads.
Awesome.
Data binding improvements, like there's a bunch of cases where you often want to separate out what you're binding to and the event that you're triggering when the data changes. We'll give you ways to hook into there and apply, add some async logic. So if you want to have an async handler and do data binding at the same time, that's coming in .NET 7. More flexible pre-rendering. If you don't know what pre-rendering is, that Blazor components, they're very flexible. They can run anywhere, right? They can run on the browser, they can run on the server, they can run in native client apps. Often you run them from the server to pre-generate the HTML view for your application. So you get pixels on the screen really quick. And then in the background, you wire up the app for interactivity, like your download the WebAssembly runtime and this assemblies. You've got HTML up though while that's all happening. That's called pre-rendering.
And we do that at live.net. When you go to the .NET website, there's a live TV button. You'll click on it and you'll notice that everything shows up instantaneously. And then the countdown timer starts and it's localized into your local time, and a few other things light up after that.
Yeah. If you look at the source, like you'll see the source is there's HTML that was downloaded from the server. You're not just getting like a page with nothing in it, and then the DOM gets populated client-side by a client-side framework. And the nice thing about having that source with HTML content in it is it's good for anything that needs to statically analyze the page. Like if you're doing search engine optimization and those types of things, pre-rendering makes that actually really simple with Blazor. I think there was a Twitter thread on us recently about SEO and Blazor. Like, can Blazor do SEO? Actually, Blazor does SEO really well because the components are so flexible. They run server side or client side, so you can do this pre-rendering trick. In .NET 7, pre-rendering will get more powerful. Like right now, we have some limitations. If you have authentication enabled and you're trying to pre-render, setting up the authentication state while you're pre-rendering is really difficult. We basically tell you not to do it. We'll try and enable that scenario, and we'll just try to make pre-rendering better across the board.
Awesome.
If you're a Blazor server user, there are improvements coming to you too. We're going to give you a lot more control over the life cycle of your circuits. So every Blazor server user, right, has a connection that comes to your server, and the UI gets then managed over that live. It's actually a SignalR connection under the covers, and there's state that's managed on the server for each client that's connected. That's what we call the circuit. And we want to enable you to do things like if you want to roll out an update to your servers, be able to gracefully wind down those circuits, persist their state, and then bring them back up again. That's what we call pause and resume. Or if you have like a circuit that's being idle and the client's really not doing anything with it, and you don't want to be paying for that circuit with your server resources, you can kick them out and say, you're done. That type of stuff. We'll give you more fine-grained control over the circuit lifecycle.
Nice.
The last one is better support for micro front ends. A lot of people probably have heard of microservices. Micro front ends is basically the same pattern but applying to UI, where you break up your web page into different pieces that different teams are delivering into a broader micro front end framework. You can build micro front ends with Blazor today, but there are some patterns that are hard or not really possible. We're going to try and make it much more flexible, where if you want to have one team using Blazor server on one part of a page and another team using Blazor WebAssembly on another part of the page, they'll be able to do that. Be able to use different versions of Blazor. We're going to try and see if we can get that done as well. Nice. And also ship to stable version of the custom elements support that we started with .NET 6. This is a way to take a Blazor component and shrink wrap it in a standard custom HTML element that can then be used by any front-end framework. And it's a very common tool used for micro front-end patterns. So we'll ship that too.
Nice. That's super exciting. So much coming in Blazor. I love it.
Lots of stuff coming in Blazor.
Yeah.
MVC, we're going to do improvements to endpoint routing and link generation. We have an older routing system that we've had for a while in ASP.NET Core that we've been slowly replacing with the new endpoint routing system. There are a couple of feature gaps right now that still make it so that some cases you have to use the old routing system. We're going to get that all cleaned up and add some improvements to doing link generation using those routing systems. Some tweaks to parameter binding as well.
And that's cool that, no matter how you're building your web front ends with ASP.NET Core, all bits and pieces of that are getting some great new feature enhancements, right? Coming along. So you're using Razor pages, you're using Blazor, you're using MVC. You're going to be able to take advantage of a lot of this new stuff, which is really great.
Yeah, a little bit for everyone, I think, in this release. Last thing on here is really more a forward-looking item. We're now collaborating with the Orleans team, the .NET Orleans team, to see how can we better integrate and align their really awesome distributed app model with the other things that we do in ASP.NET Core? Like, are there places that we can share more code, where we can integrate their programming model in other places? Like, one idea has been kicked around is, would it make sense to have a distributed cache implementation in ASP.NET Core based on Orleans? That's something we're looking at. So some conversations that are starting there on how can we leverage this technology in more places for modern web development.
Awesome. I can't wait. Now I'm going to put links down to everything below that we talked about today. So if you miss out on anything, got time codes on there, all that good stuff. Dan, this is awesome. There's so much coming. I'm so excited. And people can try it today.
This is just a short list. So if you want the full list, I'll point you to GitHub. There is a link at the bottom of this list down here, the ASP.NET Core roadmap for .NET 7. Go ahead and click on that. That'll bring you to this GitHub issue, which has all the things that we're planning to deliver in the .NET 7 timeframe just for web development. And again, if you want to know, if you're a desktop dev or mobile dev or whatever, and you want to know about those spaces, go check out these other roadmap links on the main .NET 7 Preview 1 blog post.
And I'll put them all down there. Dan, thank you so much for coming and talking for so long on this awesome topic. I think it's great because, there's so much going on, and it's great to go a little bit deeper and kind of understand the rationale and the behind some of the features and how they fit in. Because anyone can just read the blog, but it's great to kind of have a nice conversation around it. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, and it's going to be a great release. Go give .NET 7 Preview 1 a try.
Yeah, give us our feedback. Dan, go on holiday. Get out of here. Whoosh, get out of here. Thanks everyone for tuning in to On.NET. Of course, if you've literally made it this far in the video, thank you so much for just being here. Really appreciate it. If you're over on the YouTubes, go ahead and give that like button a like. That'll share it and help in the YouTube algorithm of goodness, and share it with other people. Don't forget, you can subscribe right here on the .NET YouTube, and you get notified every single time we put out a new video or a live stream. But that's going to do it for this week's On.NET. So until next time, I'm James Bonta-Magno, and this has been On.NET.